Hey there, in today's video I'm going to preview the New York Marathon 2023. Prior to running my last marathon, I made a series of vlogs to kind of explain the process as I went along. And in this particular marathon, what I'm going to try and do is separate it into two main videos: a preview of the New York Marathon 2023 and a review of the New York Marathon 2023. So lots of the assumptions I'm making as I go along might be completely correct and might be proven completely wrong in the review, but we'll see how we get on. But yeah, I decided to break it into two halves. There'll be lots of different continuity things, different shirts, different locations, different haircuts as I go along, and the things that occur to me and what might go right and what go wrong along the way all will be revealed as we proceed. And because of the nature of making this video, I don't know how long it's going to take. So as always, there'll be chapter markers down below so you can skip on through to the bits you might be interested in. Let's get going. The New York Marathon 2023 is on November the 5th, Sunday, November the 5th, and it is now Wednesday, August 16th. But today is a big day. I've got to make some choices today, and the reason for that is, according to this, we're 11 weeks out from the New York Marathon. And when you run the New York Marathon, the New York Road Runners Club have a dashboard, and you have your own sort of settings and things you need to do. And today at 5 o'clock Irish time, I think it's noon Eastern time, United States, you've got to make a decision on transportation. I haven't run the New York Marathon before. I've seen it on TV on Eurosport last year, and I've read and looked at the course extensively. And it's really important, transportation, and transportation is going to feed back things. And the reason transportation is important is you've got to get to the start at Staten Island, which is not as central as most of the rest of Manhattan and New York is. It's sort of out on the edges on Staten Island. And so you've got to get there. And there seems to be a couple of different ways. One is you could walk there if you live nearby, I suppose, but that's an unlikely scenario. You could drive there if you knew what you were doing coming from different parts of New York, and you might be able to do that. But they advise of lots of road closures, so that doesn't seem likely either. And that leaves you with two main options. You can catch a ferry from the south of Manhattan and then get to Staten Island and again get a bus, or you can get a bus from Midtown Manhattan. And I have to reserve that today. Today is when it opens up, and apparently it sells out fast, so I have to choose an option and I have to go from there. I studied all the options, and my favorite option would be to go on the ferry. I'd love to go on the ferry. But it's complicated because I'd have to get a train ride, a subway down through Manhattan in the middle of the night, get on the ferry, then go off at the other end and get on a bus and go to the start line. And otherwise, I can go and I can get a bus from the middle of town, from the New York Public Library, I think, across all the way to the start line. And that is my preferred option. The reason this is my preferred option is that I know when I get to the end of the marathon, my energy should be a lot less. Of course, it will be a lot less than when I started out. And I don't want to walk too far to the hotel. The finish is in Central Park, and if I book a hotel in Midtown, I know it's a comfortable enough walk, just enough time for me to wind down and go through New York. As it happens, I was in New York on an occasion when the marathon happened, and I was actually out running in Central Park, and I stopped and walked back to my hotel from the finish line. So I know that already, and I've booked the hotel in Midtown. The reason I've booked a hotel in Midtown is that is where the buses go from. So if I can book a bus tonight, that's definitely the hotel I'm going to stay in. And if I can't, I have to figure out some other alternative. But I've booked the hotel. The other thing is that the expo, you have to book a slot at the expo, a time slot. And so I've booked a time slot as well. I'm hoping to book a time slot today. And again, we're 11 weeks out, but I've got to book that today. And then everything else will hinge around that. So today is probably the first most important day after having qualified or got into New York. I'll go through that another day. And so, yeah, so that's the initial thing to do, is to get the transportation to Staten Island and to the start sorted out. So I logged on, and I was 6 minutes after 5 when I logged on, various things happening. And at this stage, there was a lot of other people who must have logged on. It must be keen to log on pretty quickly. Now the window was open for maybe 5 or 6 weeks, but it looked like a lot of people logged on immediately. It was advising to come back in 3 hours because there was so many people logged on, but I decided I'd wait, and there was a nice little graphic down the bottom of a person walking, and it was really good. It was really efficient. It took half an hour and then I was on. It was very simple drop down to pick the things I wanted. I was offered a bus at 6 or 6:15. I picked the early bus. Early is always better for me. And I'll be on Irish time, so I'll be awake anyway. So I picked the 6 o'clock bus to get out. And then one of the advantages I didn't go through the other day, there was a couple of advantages with the bus. One is, if I didn't get the bus, I was going to have to get a train, and then I was going to have to get a ferry, and I was going to get another bus. And anyone who's watched planes, trains, and automobiles, I had visions of pillows. They're not pillows. I just had these visions of it all go horribly wrong. And of course, my nature is to be early for things. So then I want to be super early for the train, to be super early for the... Anyway. And of course, it would be cold. And one of the advantages of... I have a short walk down to the bus, and then I just jump on the bus, and then I'm assuming it's heated, and I should be warm for the journey out. So that meant things are a lot less complicated. And there's a couple of other advantages that I'll go through in terms of distances and time. There are 2 other things that you book at the same time. One is a bag drop. Now, the bag drop is unusual compared to most marathons. Now, there are, I think, about 45,000 people running. So there's a long, complicated logistics in this. But your bag drop is not something you drop at the start. It's something that you give to them a couple of days in advance at the expo, I think. And then it's a bag you can pick up at the end, presumably with stuff that you might want, warm clothing and all these kinds of things. I'm staying nearby, and everybody gets a poncho. So if it was like, I don't know what the weather's going to be like, but the weather could be bad and the poncho will keep you warm. So everybody's going to get a poncho, and that's enough for me. I don't like the complexities at the end of trying to find stuff. I'll be okay with a poncho. So you have to select that, whether you want bag drop and poncho, and then you select a time to go to the expo. And again, I think I picked the first time I could, which is 10 o'clock on a Friday. I think it might also be open on the Thursday, but I'll be flying on a Thursday. So I picked the first time because, again, I'll be staying on Irish time. I'll be waking up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and nothing to do, and I'll be chomping at the bit to get into the expo. So those are all booked and very easy to book on the dashboard. I booked my hotel for the New York Marathon as soon as I knew I was in it. I'm a member of all sorts of hotel apps, but clubs and all these kinds of things. I don't use them very often, but occasionally I do. And so I'm on the IHG, and the hotel I quite like to use is Holiday Inn Express. Now, I like that because I know the exact contents of the breakfast. They always have the oatmeal that I like and coffee during the day. So I like that. And this particular hotel I've stayed in before. It's the Holiday Inn Express, Manhattan Times Square South, 60 West 36th Street. Now, I could cancel that hotel if I wanted to. I don't particularly at this stage. There's a couple of advantages and disadvantages, but the one advantage there is location, because if I was in a hotel down by the ferry, then I wouldn't be close to other things. And so to give you an example, so this is 60 West 36th Street, 60 West 36th Street. So from the finish line of the New York Marathon, I've picked it out at Central Park, more or less where I think it is. And then this says it's a 35-minute walk. It's 1.7 miles. So for me, at the end of a marathon, that's perfect. That's really perfect. A nice, easy, steady walk back and let the heart rate go down. So that is perfect for me. It's not far from the Javits Center, which is where you pick up your bib at the expo. So that's really handy. This says it's a 22-minute walk. It's heading west. It looks to be a mile, something like that. So it's a mile away, which is pretty straightforward, all the way down West 36th Street as far as I can find. Now, here is the map that will show you if you were to go down to Pier 17. So if I was to go down to Pier 17 from the hotel to get the ferry, it would be, I'd have to get the train. I'd get one at 5:32 to get in at 6:02. And then I'd have to get on the ferry and then get on the other bus. So all that was going to be too logistically complicated for my simple soul. So, and then directions to my favorite toy shop in New York. This is my favorite shop, I think, in the entire world. B&H Photo and Video. I could waste days in there, but instead I'll waste. I'll be in there on the Friday. On the Saturday, I'll be doing everything I can to stay in the hotel room and not go far and not use up the legs. So I won't be going sightseeing. I won't be adding to legs. I'll sit in the hotel room and I'll make another video. According to my Garmin, we are now 9 weeks and 3 days, which I think is 66 days away from the New York Marathon start. And yeah, the hotel is booked. I've got my transportation and I'm in the middle of training, which I'll cover in another day, but it's going pretty well. And now I'm really looking at the course. And I have to do all of these things before I figure out what clothing I'm going to wear, and I suppose the most important thing is the temperature. Now, the typical temperature for the New York Marathon is about 50 to 55, bearing in mind it's in early November, so 50 to 55 Fahrenheit, or about 10 or 13 degrees centigrade, which is a great temperature for marathon running. Now, the disadvantage is that that's the time the races run, the temperature when the races run, but it might be a lot cooler in the nighttime when you're getting up and heading out. So that has an implication that we'll do further along. Last year, it was 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 degrees centigrade, which is, I mean, I love that kind of temperature, but for marathon running, that's a bit hot. And the temperature feeds the clothing. And so I'm keeping a close eye on that because big decisions have to be made in that regard. I like to know the course I'm running. In Chicago, when I ran it in 2021, I didn't learn the course well enough, and when I headed out with the skyscrapers and city to my back, just when the race was getting gnarly, it gets at me. I get grumpy, yeah, it's not pretty. So I like to know the course. If I know the course like Rotterdam, and then I kind of know how to judge my effort, all that sort of stuff. And one of the beauties of the New York course is that you go through the 5 boroughs and you can see the tall buildings at the end. And I think that is something I'm really, really going to enjoy. But to learn the course, I've been to New York on the marathon race day, and I've seen the sort of end in Central Park. And I watched it last year on Eurosport. I was really interested in seeing the bridges and all that sort of stuff, because that's where the hills are effectively in New York, is the bridges. There'll be some other gradients up and down, but largely going up and down on the bridges is the hard part in terms of elevation. Then what I do is I get out Apple Maps and I get Google Street View. I have 2 monitors, and I have my laptop, and I'll look at the route and try and find things along the way. And I often say this, that when I go out running, I often think about what I'll think about when I'm running. And yeah, I saw that there's a Marcus Garvey Park near the end, just when it's getting gnarly, and I know I'll be tired. But he was a Jamaican national hero. I went to high school in Jamaica, and he also had connections with Ireland. And so I really enjoy that bit. I kind of look forward to run. I think you run around the park, but I'll be looking forward to that and then into Central Park. And yeah, I like to prepare. I try to watch all the world marathons on TV. I watched on Eurosport last year the New York Marathon live. In the men's, the Brazilian Daniel de Nascimento, he went out really fast. I mean, he was in a 200-meter lead, and then he was going over one of the bridges, and I was thinking, he's looking very shiny. He's beautiful skin, but it was very shiny. I was thinking, wow, he's shining a lot. I should have realized he was sweating too much. He came across, he went into a porta potty, he came out, he fell down and hit the wall, and that's, I do not want that to happen. So far, I've managed that well. I don't want that to happen, but that's one of the reasons as well, is to look at the course and see the hills and where you might need more energy to push, all those kinds of things. But thankfully, he was okay, and hopefully he's running again this year. One of the disadvantages of running the New York Marathon is I can't watch it live on TV, and I'd really like to, because this year the female field is stacked unbelievably. The New York Road Runners Club sent you emails about stuff, and they sent me the list of the women's entry this year is unbelievable. It's so Sharon Lekady, last year's winner 2022, she's in it. Helen Obery, who went on last year, I think she came 5th or 6th, but she went on, she won the 2023 Boston Marathon. Perez Jepchirchir, the gold medalist at the Olympics and the New York Marathon winner in 2021, is in it. And Bridget Kosgei, the world record holder. I mean, what a stellar field. And I won't be able to watch it because I'll be in it. But yeah, I'll watch it later on TV. But I think if you're not in it, that is, I think that might be the athletics highlight of the season. Just watching the race pan out with those wonderful athletes. So anyway, it's yeah, the price of being in it is you can't watch it. Okay, so I'm training for the New York Marathon. In probably the last 8 marathons, I've used a Stride training plan. And this year they've improved it massively from my point of view. I typically run 4 days a week training for marathons. I leave the 5th day for maybe filming for various YouTube videos and other things. I mean, I film more than that, but just for running components, I usually do on a Saturday, long run Sunday, and then blocks of training on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm in the middle of one now where I'm supposed to walk for 4 minutes. I've got a couple more minutes to do this, and I ran 10 minutes full throttle. So this is where I usually run. Well, I pretty much always, because this is near home. I'm a couple of miles, 3 or 4k from home, and you can see Dublin kind of in the background. This long straight stretch is where I try to do sprints, and yeah, the lighthouse is beyond there. Troy, you'll remember that. And I'm going out to the beach to make a video about these sunglasses in a couple of minutes. Once I've got to do a few more cool down runs at various speeds, so I'll do some of those. I'm also testing how I might film the New York Marathon, so hence I've got the GoPro, I've got a mini tripod, I've got a selfie stick, I've got a GoPro with a media mod, not the GoPro I'll be using. But yeah, there's all these kinds of things. But the Stride training plan is really good. I get audio sounds out of my Apple Watch, usually telling me to slow down, because on the slow runs I find it hard to go as slow as it says, as does my partner, my running partner Liam says the same. But the Stride foot pod is on the shoe there, and then it sends the sort of speed up, slow down data to this. I try and memorize it. I'll show you on my iPhone. Today is a really good day, of one of my favorite days of training, in that in the original Stride plans they were very sort of uniform. Midweek it was always an hour, and you'd warm up for maybe 20 minutes, cool down for 20 minutes, in a long session in between of whatever sprints tempos. The latest one, you tend to warm up and you've got loads of variety, lots of fartlecking, and then when you're finished doing the hard bits of the training, there's some short periods of finishing back, which I like, because I typically go over there, run over the hill, end up in the park, then myself and Liam have a chat and walk a couple of k home. So yeah, the Stride training plan is going really well. I still haven't set any performance objectives for the New York Marathon. I have in the legs I'm injury free. My back pain has transitioned to mild hip pain, so that's going okay. Another session with the physio tomorrow night, but training is going pretty well. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really looking forward to New York. I've been planning all sorts of things. I've pretty much got the route well in my mind, as I've got the 5 boroughs where I'm going to go. I step in out of the road here because of the noise of the traffic, but I've pretty much got the training going. But the Stride training plan is really good. I'll show today's session. I'll pin it here and here, and I'll also pin some other ones. But yeah, I find the other thing about the Stride plan this time is that instead of 3 big blocks during the week of an hour, there tends to be in the middle a 30-minute run with some sprinting in the middle of it, which I really enjoy. And yeah, then the long run at the weekend.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Speed up to power of 170 to 200.
Stop talking for some reason. Anyway, what's it saying? 170 to 226 for 14 minutes, and I'm doing 280, so I got to slow down. So some of the paces are really slow. I'll wait for it to, I mean, I've set the voice to a female voice, I think. Maybe that was the default one. Maybe it's the only one, I don't know. It's fine with me. She's gonna keep telling me to slow down. Right, I'll stop the camera. According to my Garmin, we are 6 weeks and 3 days away from the New York City Marathon 2023. It also tells me I'll run it in 3 hours 57 and 13 seconds. Now my Stride says I'll run it in 3 hours 44. So training is going well. I'll run it somewhere around there. I'm not particularly bothered. I haven't set up any performance targets so far yet, but that might change. I've got the flights organized, I've got the hotel organized, I've got the transportation to the site organized. I have the kit partly organized. I have my shorts, which I'm very pleased with. They're new. I haven't worn them before. I've tested them, but haven't worn them in a marathon before, but I'm really happy with those. And the rest of the kit I haven't decided yet. I've got some decisions made. Shoes aren't decided, but I've narrowed them down to a couple of different pairs of shoes. So all of that, and training is going well. I'm on the Stride training plan, and all of that is going really well. I have a slight niggle in my glutes, but it's way better than it was for the last marathon, and it's barely noticeable. I actually have a sinus infection at the moment. Hard to hear, so if my voice sounds very strange, that could be it. And I've also got earbuds in, and also I've got a slight skin condition, but the usual stuff that we all go through before a marathon. My training is going well, and I did say I'd make a video about how I got into the New York Marathon. You can get in various different ways. First of all, you can have you be elite athlete, and you might be invited. I'm guessing Helen Obery, Marcel Hug, people like that get invited, I guess. There are actually qualifying standards. They're higher than Boston, but then there's so many other routes into the New York Marathon. But they're a bit higher than Boston, and they're age related again. They're great. I mean, they go up to 80 plus, and really good. Yeah, it's really good. I won't be making them. They're faster than I would make, even though I have qualified for Boston. But yeah, they're pretty good. And so that's one way in. You perform your way in. There's another way, which I'll come to. You can run, if you've run 15 marathons before, 15 New York marathons, you get automatic entry. If you are in the 5K and 10K program with the New York Roadrunners, I don't know how that works, but you could get in. And also, if you're committed to the New York Roadrunners Run for Kids program, which is really good. I mean, it's great that people are raising money for kids. And if you do that, your funding, you can raise $2,100, which I think is about $50 per kilometer. And yeah, it's really good. I saw a lot of reviews, and it's from people from outside New York, so they could be from Florida, Colorado. But the kids are benefiting in New York, which I think is a good idea. And also, strangely, it allows you to get access to the Chicago Marathon and also the Berlin Marathon. They're all sold out this year, but I'm not sure the exact details, but the funding is at €2,100. Then, of course, there is you could use a travel operator. I like logistics. I like figuring stuff out. That's not really my MO. I might have to do that in Tokyo and also in London if I don't win the lottery or find some other way into those two marathons, which I want to run. And so you can do the tour operator, and of course you can do the charity option. So you can, and the New York Roadrunners will connect you with various charities. I don't know what you have to raise in order to get a guaranteed entry, but they exist. And again, all of the categories are finite. There's not that many, and they're all sold out for this year, probably opening up for next year immediately after the race. The way I got in was unusual, I thought, but last year, middle of last summer, I noticed that there was a thing on Strava that said if I was to run a virtual New York Marathon, about a week either side of the actual New York Marathon was the limit. I had to upload it to Strava. So run a virtual marathon, I could get guaranteed entry into the New York Marathon 2023. I was really pleased to do it. I enjoyed it. There's no performance target. You can run it at whatever speed you wanted. You could probably walk it. I think you have to do it a day in one single go, something like that. Anyway, I took a train from Dublin to Athlone and ran the old rail trail to Mullingar, which I'd run previously, and I really enjoyed it. It was a great day out. I took it handy. I stopped here and there, made pieces to camera. I'll show some images here. But I did that. They also did the same thing again this year, and ironically Gary, who lives along by the old rail trail, availed of it this year, I think. So it's really good. You could actually run the Dublin Marathon, I think, as your virtual marathon, but I just did the New York virtual marathon myself in countryside that looked nothing like New York, but I enjoyed it immensely. It was a great day out, and I could sense all the time I was running towards New York, even though I was out in the Irish countryside. So those are some of the ways into New York Marathon. I think of all the marathons, it probably has the best range of options into the New York Marathon. Though I did see that in Berlin, I saw this morning, that if you do the inline skating option, you can skate an inline the Berlin Marathon in the afternoon after the run takes place. And if you do that, I think you get guaranteed entry into the Berlin Marathon. But I've done the Berlin Marathon, so I can't inline skate. But yeah, that's how I got into the New York Marathon 2023. According to my Garmin, we are now 5 weeks and 4 days away from the New York City Marathon 2023. And it's estimating that I will run it in 3 hours, 54 minutes and 36 seconds. It has the route already in the Garmin, so it has a good idea. It knows my training, and it knows, well, as I get closer to the marathon, I expect that figure will go down, and what it'll be like in reality, who knows. But a couple of things from last week's video. One was I ran the New York virtual marathon through the Irish countryside, and I was saying how unlike New York it is. I meant Manhattan, because having been to upstate New York, to Cooperstown in particular, I remember going to Cooperstown, which is I guess the home of baseball, and I remember going up with a whole bunch of kids and thinking to myself, it looked very like rural Ireland. So there are parts of New York that feel very familiar, just not the New York thing. A couple of things as well was that I forgot to say that you get a medal if you well, assuming you sign up with Strava and you do the marathon and all that, you get a medal. I also got a little key ring that I don't use, but it's very nice. It's really nice. But yeah, so it kind of it's one of the reasons I like to run marathons is that that's why I prefer to run a 4-hour marathon than a 3-hour training run, is that there's a medal at the end of it at least and there's people cheering. So yeah, you get those at the end. Well, you don't get the people cheering, but you do get a medal at the end of your Strava virtual race, if that's what you signed up for. But I thought at this point in time, I still haven't chosen the shoes. There's a big thing about that. Various videos, you probably know by now, if you're watching this video and you've seen my other videos, probably know what shoes I'm wearing. I don't, but I'll be making one as I go along next couple of weeks. There's a couple of things that before I get the kit completely done, and because I make videos, I wanted to film parts of the New York Marathon, and there are various things you need to take into account, and I'll show some screen grabs along, but looking at the laptop, the code of conduct, it's really interesting. There's a bit about COVID-19. There's a lot about unsportsmanlike competition, which I think is really good. It talks about start, and one of the interesting things about the New York Marathon, which I think is the same for most marathons, but in the last marathon it caused some confusion, was that if you're in a start corral and you want to go slower, you can go back to an earlier corral if there's room, but you can't advance. I think that's a really good idea. There's no smoking or vaping, which is good. Headphones and mobile phones and devices, I might be trying to run with some headphones to then make pieces to camera to the Garmin, or not to the Garmin, to my GoPro. I was testing last week. If you see that the last footage, it looks like I'm leaning out on a balcony that's wobbling wildly in the it looks like it's going to collapse at any moment. That's not actually what was happening. What's happening was handheld and this is moving, but the Garmin kept the horizon, or the GoPro kept the horizon stable. However, running courtesy, this is really good. Forming, do not run in groups of 3 or more abreast. Wide groups become barriers to other runners. If only that was the case in Rotterdam. In Rotterdam, narrow canals, paths, and there'd be 5 people all running in parallel who started too fat and they're all moving back. Anyway, passing, let someone know you come on your left or on your right. That's pretty good. Avoid the chopping if it gets on. Stopping, don't stop abruptly. Wow, I wish the people who ran my 5K park run knew this. You're running and then suddenly someone stops. However, don't stop abruptly. No spitting where people are around and blowing your nose. Noise, no portable speakers. That's pretty good. Helping. I think this is really good. If you encounter a runner in distress, offer assistance. In other words, don't run by, offer assistance. They're really good. They talk about portable potties. It's, I suppose, not a big worry for me in the States, but they don't have the same kind of easy ones they have in Europe. Chicago is a real pain. Urinating or defecating in the corrals at the post-finish walk-off or in park woods is not only discourteous, but a violation of New York Road Runners Rules of Competition, and you risk disqualification. So yeah, race attire. This is kind of interesting. We strongly discourage male participants from racing without shirts and or removing their shirts during the race. You see a lot of, I see a lot of men doing this. Interestingly, that rule doesn't apply for women. Go for it. Anyway, trash. Yeah, I think that's really good. When discarding cups at aid stations, use caution to avoid hitting other participants. I'm going to say the same thing I always do. Put the trash bins a couple of 100 meters from have them regularly, but have 1 or 2 at such a distance that someone can drink whatever they're drinking and then drop something in the trash. Each marathon would save themselves so much more time. Anyway, personal gripe, that one. But this is really well organized marathon. Lost and found is a good thing about that. And various bits and pieces. So those are what are called the effectively the code of conduct. But there are other guidelines and procedures. So rules of the competition. And again, I was talking to Liam last night. We were out running, and he says he never reads any of these. But it's my nature. So we go through, and because I'm particularly looking for this, you have to race with your race number bib on the front. Lots of marathons you see people on the back, but it has to be on the front. Now what that means is that if I was wearing a chest strap for a GoPro, that might be tricky. So a couple of things like that. You can't transfer. That's fairly standard in most marathons, and goes down course marking, completion assistance, time limit. There is in New York, the time limit is actually very generous, and they do talk that participants in races staged on New York City streets may be asked to move to the sidewalks or board the sweep bus per instructions of event officials. But I think they're pretty generous in terms of timings. And then there's a list of prohibited items. We'll come back to that. Penalties. There's various penalties for various effectively unsportsmanlike conduct or public urination or defecation. And there are additional rules for athletes with disabilities. Interestingly enough, if you're in a hand cycle or on a hand cycle, you must wear a helmet at all times. So there's various things like that, and there's ones for pushroom wheelchair participants. But I'll go back to, because this was a list of prohibited items. Some of them fairly obvious, but some of them not so obvious. So hydration backpack vest with bladder or water reservoir. If your vest allows for both water bottles and a bladder water reservoir, you're only able to use the bottles, and they must be in the front pockets of the vest. So that's an interesting one, because I was thinking of wearing a vest to carry some GoPro stuff. Fuel belts, hydration vests with bottles in the front, and handheld water bottles are allowed. So hydration vests with bottles. All water bottles must be 1 litre or smaller. So it talks about portable speakers, backpacks, weight vests, all sorts of things. Selfie sticks and any camera mount or rig that isn't directly attached to the head or the torso. That's an interesting one for me. And this all feeds into what equipment I'm going to be wearing on my torso. I have the shorts chosen. I know what I've got on my arms. I don't know what the shoes are, and I don't know the top yet. You're not allowed to wear costumes that cover the face, and any bulky outfits that extend beyond the perimeter of the body. Form-fitting outfits are allowed. So you can run as Batman, but for all of those of you who love the London Marathon and running as the world's fastest cheesecake or whatever it is that you run in, some giant bulky outfit is not permitted. Hallelujah. So then there are weapons of any kind. You'd expect that. No firearms, knives, mace. Dangerous items of dual use. This is interesting. So, which could be considered dangerous, including hammers. Should you wish to do a bit of carpentry along the way, saws, sharp objects, umbrellas, poles, sticks, etc. So they're all not allowed. Large packages, coolers, tents, lean-tos. I'm that slow that I need a tent. Again, duvets and sleeping bags. You can't bring those. Alcoholic beverages and illegal substances. Makes sense. And you can't bring any drones or survey balloons. You can't bring animals or pets. Folding chairs, camp chairs, tables, glass containers, and any chemical compounds or biological agents. And I'm interested in reading all these things to try and plan exactly what I can bring, what isn't allowed. And because this is a very large marathon, I think it's, from what I can see, it's extremely well organized, extremely well run, and having watched it on TV last year. So yeah, I'm going to get all of that sorted out so that I have the kit that complies with all the rules. That's how I roll. So today is Wednesday, the 1st of November, 2023, and I am nearly ready for the New York Marathon. Now, my watch is telling me that it's 4 days to go. It's Wednesday, the race is on Sunday, and it's telling me that I will run the race in 3 hours, 52 minutes, and 36 seconds. Be very happy if I do. Anyway, my Stride Foot Pod is telling me I'll run it in 3:45. Sometimes I can beat that. In Rotterdam, I beat that by 10 minutes. If I do that, I'll be fine. I'm not looking for any performance goals at this stage. It says it's going to be 11 degrees at 8 o'clock in the morning. 11 degrees is the temperature is right out there, and I'm wearing this because on the morning of the New York Marathon, I have to get a bus at 6 o'clock in the morning. You go out to Staten Island. My understanding is that those who use bags will have dropped those off several days in advance. So a lot of people bring sacrificial layers of clothing. I had planned to do that. I went to the Dublin Marathon last weekend, and I was wandering along. I was filming it. I wasn't running it. And I was walking along, and I saw all the discarded t-shirts and tops and all sorts of stuff. And there was a guy doing the recycling for them, and it was a big undertaking. And in amongst that, I saw this. The poncho that you can get at the end of the Berlin Marathon. I have another one over there that I've never worn. And but I didn't wear it then, but I thought, wow, this one that was on the ground, somebody used it in Dublin. It was going to be thrown away, and I thought, cool, I'm going to bring this to New York. It's been in Berlin Marathon, it's been in the Dublin Marathon, it's going to be in the New York Marathon. So I thought I'd bring that. The temperatures are looking on the warm side for the race. Kind of nice for the morning, but if you were looking for a personal best, not ideal. I'm not looking for a personal best. If I do it in 3 hours 53, I'll be very happy. What I'm really looking for is maximum enjoyment in New York. I'll probably only ever run the New York Marathon once, and I don't want to sort of run by it. It's just all a flash. I'd actually quite like to enjoy it. I have the kit. I mean, this is the first piece. I have the kit sort of from my waist down. I know what I'm wearing. I know I'll be wearing my Vaporfly 3s by Nike. I had planned to try and get a pair of Alphafly 3s. I thought they might be released in September. That wasn't the case. They're coming next year. I also then thought I might get a copy of or a pair of the Adidas EOS Adizero Pro Evo 1s. That didn't transpire. So I'm running in my Vaporfly 3s, and I loved running every meter of Rotterdam in those, so quite happy in those. I have a very interesting pair of shorts, which I will show in the next video when I get to New York. I'm traveling to New York tomorrow morning. This is all a preview video. I'm thinking to myself, I decided to make a big long preview video. I watched some of it yesterday. I thought, oh, bless anybody who's going to watch that. So if you've got this far, my sincere appreciation. And yeah, so anyway, I'm all ready. In terms of injuries, well, I'm pretty much injury free. My hip back problem I had has sort of gone away. I've had a bad skin complaint about my eyes. You'll see it in the earlier videos. After endless amounts of different creams and potions, I think I found one that looks like it's working. Anyway, it was, I don't know whether it was eczema, whether it was rosacea. There was millions of different suggestions. It was bad skin. Zoom in, you'll see. Anyway, that is okay. I have a slight problem with my left Achilles, which I'm hoping won't turn into a big problem. All that kind of stuff that people usually have. I said at the start of the video, this is a preview of what I think might work in New York. I might find it all terrible, and I might be completely wrong in every assumption I've made. I've sort of got an idea of the course. I know that the roads are going to be long and straight, and just when you get onto a road, you think you see the end, but it's going to take ages. I first learned that in the Windsor Half Marathon, coming down the end of the hill and a very long finishing straight. In my head, getting to Central Park, which is where the finish is, won't be. It's Churchill's quote about the war, and that wasn't the beginning of the end, but it was perhaps the end of the beginning. That's my feeling about when we get to Central Park. It's the end of the beginning. It's where the race really starts, where you're really getting tired. And yeah, I'm interested to see what it's like on the bridges. I'm kind of thinking that there won't be any people on the bridges. Maybe there are, but that you might go through crowds and then and noise, and then bridge and quiet, and then crowds and noise, and they're kind of some things. I mean, I want to find those things out. Again, I'm not looking for performance. I just want to really, if I could maximize the enjoyment. I probably will film, probably won't bring a GoPro. I will bring my iPhone 12 Pro Max, soon to be replaced, and I probably will bring my Insta360. But the restrictions in New York, for very good reasons, mean that I probably won't be bring as much filming stuff as I might otherwise do. I made a couple of videos along the way, some of which I've learned new stuff. So for instance, 2 world records have been broken by Tigis Asifa. I won a shirt last week because I knew the answer to that at the Dublin Marathon expo. Somebody asked some questions. Anyway, she broke the world record, wonderful, as did Kelvin Kiptum. Neither of those are in this race, but it would be really, I'd love to see the race, but I won't be, I'll be in it. So that changed. I realized that Abbott have a way into the New York Marathon if you run a certain amount of the world marathons. There's other entries in. I commented on that. I was making fun of, well, I wasn't making fun, I was looking at the regulations last week, and I was talking about you couldn't run with a hammer, and then I saw that a woman in New Zealand, I think she's run 242 marathons in a row this year, and she's commemorating the loss of her good friend. So she wears a tool belt, including a hammer. So people do run marathons carrying hammers, and it's brilliant. Her achievement is brilliant. And obviously for a very good cause. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the race tomorrow. Again, this is Wednesday. I fly tomorrow morning, so I'm going to try and wrap this video up tonight. And one of the things, I was out testing this. I didn't just put it on for the video. I was going out to see how warm it would be, and actually it was really warm outside, and it's really warm now. But I've done that. Yeah, so things are pretty good. I've had great sleep. I'm bringing lots of different gadgets to the race, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. See you in New York. Thanks for watching.